It's probably Sharon. Welcome back to my channel. I'm here today to show you a fun and easy way how to make natural blue dye for your junk journal papers. This is good for people who like to junk journal or scrapbook, or even if you want to get the kids involved, it can be a fun science experiment, because who knew that red cabbage could make blue dye, right? So let's get to it. So first things first, if you're going to do this along with me, make sure that you have some gloves, because this dye will stain your fingers. I've grabbed some pages here and there when I'm making this video and without thinking, and my hands are still blue, and I recorded this yesterday, so that tells you something. So just keep that in mind. All right, so we're going to start off with red cabbage. So I just got a head of red cabbage. This particular one was 2.8 pounds, just so you have that as a reference. And then I'm going to chop that up. I've chopped up about 1.5 pounds of it. I didn't use the whole thing, although I should have. But yeah, you don't need to use that big of an amount. I wanted to make a lot for the video. So I'm going to add what I've chopped up into a big pot. And then I'm going to want to cover that with water. And this time I'm using bottled water. I always use tap water, but I live in the county, so we don't have city water. We have a well, so our water doesn't go through the water treatment plant or whatever. So I was wondering if our water had an effect on the color I was getting. So I wanted to use bottled water just as a safe starting point, but it turns out that after all is said and done, my results were the same whether I used my tap water or bottled water. So anyway, so you want to kind of cover, most of the cabbage up with the water, and then turn your burner on to high. We're almost to boiling. You can see the color changing. Let's do a little test just to see what color the paper will turn. This is just after 2 minutes of boiling. So I've turned it down to low medium. So I let this little paper dry and we'll see what color it is. This has been simmering for about 10 minutes. I'm just going to stir it around a little bit and kind of show you what the color of the liquid is looking like now. I'm going to do a little test strip just to see kind of what color this turns out to be, but after it dried there was barely any color at all. So now it's been about 20 minutes and it's starting to get a little bit darker now. I did another test strip, and again, there was barely any color. So this is after 1 hour. You can see the color is really starting to show, and you'll see the liquid has dropped quite a bit. Okay, so now I'm going to get a strainer, and I'm going to start straining some of this solution. I'm not going to strain all of it because I made so much. I'm doing a few batches, so I'm just going to strain, I'd say it's about 1.5 cups. I just want to make sure I don't get any cabbage bits in there. So once I've strained some of it out, I'm going to get my pan, and I'm using like one of those recyclable aluminum buffet pans. This isn't the one I normally use. I got a fresh new one just for this video, but the one I normally use is pretty gross, obviously. So I wanted a shiny new one. I couldn't do this with one hand, obviously, so I had to pause and put the sheets in one by one, kind of tilt the pan around to cover the paper with liquid, then put the next pan or next paper in. Okay, so the paper has been in this solution for about 3 hours. When I put the pan, when it's done and ready to just sit for a while, I put it in my oven so the cat doesn't tip it over, or, you know, whatever, the kids get into it. If it's in the oven, nobody's going to touch it. Well, when I put it in the oven was warm because I had just gotten done using it. So you can see the effect of some of these pages where, because of the heat of the oven, it dried the edges quickly. I mean, it's cool now, but anyway, so let's take these out of the pan, which is difficult because when you grab the little corner one sheet at a time, they tend to tear a lot of times. I'd say 30% of the time I tear a corner off. So I'm going to get these out of the pan. It's going to be hard with gloves, but my hands are stained and gross, so I will get them out and place them on the towel that I have over here, and we'll finish up with this pan anyway. Okay, so I've laid out some of the pages. I couldn't fit all of them on this towel, and I will say, after the comments on my last video of drying them on a sheet or drying them on plastic, I did try that, and I just like the way I do it. I like drying it on a towel, so I'm still doing it with the towel, but I did try your suggestions. So I'm going to just put stencil on a couple of these, and then as it dries, we'll be able to see the image. So this one in particular, I was doing some rust dyeing, and so there's some rust residue on this stencil, so I'm curious to see if that will have any impact on the results when it's dry. Okay, so we'll let this dry for a little bit. Oh, and a little side note, under the towel I have a cardboard box flattened out underneath it just to protect the carpet a little bit more. Okay, back to our pan. So after the first one, I took some of the cabbage out, and then I kept simmering it. Not quite as high a temperature. I turned it down a little bit, so I guess I would say it was about 2.5, and I kept it on simmer for about an hour and a half. So it's still a little bit warm, but I'm going to go ahead and take the rest of the cabbage out and then strain some of the juice and do another pan with this dye. So the way I think about it is, when you keep cooking it and you have the steam coming up, whenever you see the steam going up, that means that the dye is getting darker. So the longer you can, keep it simmering, then the darker that your solution will be. So I'm going to do another pan with this solution, and then we will come back to that in a little bit. Okay, for fun, I guess I should show you how dark this is. So I don't know if it even looks any darker, but it should be. Another thing, when you take the cabbage out of the pan, make sure and take it to your outside garbage, because it does smell up your house. Okay, here's the reveal for our first round. This is the one that was in the solution that simmered for about an hour. So that looks really pretty. They're a little bit damp, tiny bit damp. So you can kind of see the stencil through there. One turned out really pretty as well. The other ones I didn't put a stencil on, but let me get a piece of white paper so you can kind of see. It'll give you an idea of the color. So it's blue, it's light blue, but it's really pretty blue. On to the next round. Okay, so this is the second batch. So the solution or the dye in this pan was simmering for 2.5 hours, and I've had it in this pan for 3 hours soaking. So I'm just gonna get them out, and look how dark that solution is. I'm gonna get these out and place them on the towel. Okay, so I'm kind of eating my words here, but I am going to try putting one of the pieces down on a piece of bubble wrap to see how that goes. Okay, so you'll see we have lots of different kinds of paper. I have loose leaf paper, I have index cards, I have copy paper, I have legal size paper, and they're kind of all different colors. So, I mean, different manufacturers have different processes, use different chemicals. So, you know, and then the thickness of the paper, all of that comes into play. So you'll end up with a few different hues of blue just out of the same batch. Of course, I'm going to put a stencil on one of these just to see how that turns out. Okay, so it's been a few hours and I think these are mostly dry. So this is the one I put on the bubble wrap. It doesn't seem to have made any marks or anything like that. A lot of these have little puddles in it. So you have some cool little marks on it. Ooh, that one turned out really pretty. Okay, I'll gather the rest of these up and then we'll go to the final pan, which is very, very dark. Okay, this is the final pan, and then it's almost syrupy. It's really thick. So I'm going to pull these out and lay them out on the towel. Okay, you can see these look really dark, and I hope when they dry they are, I know they're not going to be this dark, but they should be darker than the other ones we did. Just going to put down a couple stencils again and let them dry with the stencil on top. Okay, we'll come back when they're dry. Okay, we're all dry, and these are so beautiful. They turned out, I love this color. Let's check out this one. That one turned out really pretty. Oh, that's gorgeous. All right, I'm really happy with these darker ones. I think my next batch I'm going to just let it simmer longer so I can get this darker color. I had another batch of papers drying in another area. I wanted to show you how this one turned out. That one looks really cool. I just put a stencil over the top of that one too. And these tend to look lighter on the camera than they are in real life. So here's a white piece of paper to kind of give you an idea of how dark they are. That helps. Woo! Here I have a few different papers from our different levels of dye. So this was our first batch, this was the second, and this was the third. So I just wanted to kind of show you the comparison of all three. Just so you know, for this whole project, I counted and I was able to dye 38 papers and 10 index cards. So that kind of gives you an idea. I did make a lot more than I normally do, but I wanted to have more to experiment a little bit more on the video. So Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.